wrapping up the Take Control authors' 20th anniversary reunion. This is MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the third and final installment in our show with the Take Control authors' reunion on the 20th anniversary of Take Control books. Let's go back and let this very distinguished panel do the talking.
So one thing we did early on that was very cool, and I don't remember quite when it went away as a service at some point. But we had this thing called there was a service called Quick Topic Document Review, and we could export the entire book to HTML, post as a private web page, and all the other authors. So one author would have written something, obviously, and then been through editing. All the other authors could comment on a paragraph by paragraph basis. And particularly early on, when we're all kind of in the, oh my gosh, we can't believe how cool this is being. And people really did, and so you would not just get, the author being an expert and the editor doing a good job, and Tonya doing a series editor pass and, having another pair of eyes. You'd get, 2 or 3 or 4 other authors kind of running through going, I'm not sure if this is right. This doesn't work this way on my machine and stuff like that. And so
well, it wasn't even just other authors. I would ask people who worked at the company that the software was about at times. And we had just a few folks, like there's a fellow named Chris Pepper, who's well known in the general circle. And he does,
gets emails.
He does a diligent edit, and he certainly has found many wording infelicities in our manuscripts.
One of
so
the
there's
best
just
copy editors ever, and was never paid for copy editing.
He really I think he really enjoyed the opportunity to contribute.
And don't forget to
mention we would just pull basically anyone who we thought could contribute something. Lori Reinhardt, who did customer service for many years, I would just pull her in as more of maybe just a everyday person on the street kind of a read. So we get a lot of different viewpoints on the same manuscript.
Don't forget also that some of the books are sponsored books, and in that case, it's the software developer who also goes over them.
Yes.
And tells us, maybe catches something that they don't agree with, maybe wants us to add something that we don't want to add because we don't want to, go into the weeds about some obscure thing. But that does lend a bit of authority to the sponsored books.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sponsored books. I mean, I haven't really followed. I assume you guys still have some sponsored books. Yes, Joe's nodding. I feel like those are a tremendous strength of the Take Control series, and it's just a tremendous collaboration when you get a professional writer working with the development team in a way, and if when you're writing you kind of run to something where like, I just really can't explain this, or I'm like saying to the writer, this just isn't clear, and the writer's like, I can't make it any more clear. I'm like, it's not us, it's them. And then you go to the software developer and say, this menu thing, this pop-up menu dialogue control popper thing just makes no sense. And sometimes they would change it to make it better. And I really loved it when we could do that.
Yeah.
Yes. Isn't there a sense in which Take Control sort of supplemented the whole notion of software documentation? I mean, there's that for like Launch Bar, for example, wasn't a Take Control the Launch Bar documentation for a while? Maybe I'm mistaken about this.
They did have their own help, but it was in that obscure Apple help viewer format that wasn't really practical and that most people didn't use. So I wrote the Launch Bar book, and they kind of used that they kind of tried to push people to it, but not to go into too many details. They didn't really do a good job, as unlike some of the other sponsored software companies that did a better job of presenting the book to their customers.
It was the entire sponsored book concept was kind of a neat one, because we would get people who'd want us to write a book about some product that they loved and everything, and that was great. But we would say, like, we know we're not going to sell enough copies. But if we could go to this developer and say, hey, you have literally the list of everyone who wants to buy this book, and if they were, sometimes they got it, but not fully, like Kirk was saying. And other times they're like, oh, well, that's a great idea. We'll just do this, all in. And so, I think there was some really interesting synergies when that did work out. And yeah, right. The death of the manual, right? The software doesn't come with manuals ever anymore. You're lucky if it comes with help.
The Scrivener manual is 900 pages long in a PDF. It's 4 times the length of my Take Control book.
Of course.
Good heavens. I want to jump in here and say, Chuck, I see you up there in the corner. I feel like you're lonely, and like we've all been chatting, and can I just say, I mean, this is a tribute to your interview skills. You, it feels almost effortless how you've been able to get your guests to just jump in and tell.
With this bunch, I mean, I knew the best thing I could do is just step back, because I love hearing the stories.
The only observation is mind meld that he was able to accomplish.
Yeah, but the only thing I don't think that Jeff, I think, alluded to it a little bit, but I don't think you all are giving yourselves enough credit for the part of the community that you have served. Many of you wrote things before you came to Take Control. You were already well-known presences there, and Take Control just, I think, enhanced that. But you have taught so many people so many things in an approachable fashion that really just didn't exist before Take Control. So I think you all need to take a bow for that, if nothing else.
Well, and while we're taking a little bow, Chuck, we all attempted to list out how many books we'd written or edited for Take Control. But I don't think anyone's asked you how many interviews you have done in regards to a Take Control book, because it's got to be thousands, right?
Yeah, it's more than 5 at least.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, everyone. I don't think Lee was ever on the show. Everyone here has been on the show at one point or another, and I think everybody here has been on for Take Control. But it's, I mean, I felt very strongly about supporting Take Control because of the quality and because of the place in the community that you all and Take Control have had, that really is unequaled by just about anybody else.
Also, you picked leading edge topics. I mean, even if we were just, it's like it's a new version of Mac OS X, it's like, but what's new in this? You know what I mean? And we were on the edge. We were right there when the thing came out.
Trying to figure out if there was anything new that anybody cared about.
Right. Is it worth writing a book about this? How many books is it worth writing about this? But I mean, so we were sort of on the historical cusp all the time, sort of surfing the front edge of what was happening historically. And that fitted in so beautifully with MacVoices, because it was like, this thing is about to come out, and look, here's someone who's got a Take Control book about it.
I know that I have been on MacVoices more than 100 times. Wow. And like my little card is almost full. If it gets 144 punches, I get like a dozen donuts for free. So, I'm working on that.
Oh, that reminds me. For how long did you, what was the thing? You would bake cookies for somebody. Like a book would come out and you'd send cookies to the first person who bought it. What was the deal?
Yeah. So when the first book came out,
basically making us all look bad.
Yeah. When the first book came out, I thought, I don't know if I'm going to, am I going to sell 10 copies of this? Like, I had no idea. So I thought just to make this interesting, just to kind of sweeten the deal for readers, I'm just going to say, for every 1,000 copies we sell, I'm going to just pick one of those 1,000 people at random and send them a batch of my homemade chocolate chip cookies. And I like that. Like, well, this would be just like a fun little gimmicky thing. I know that I baked and mailed at least 6 batches of cookies, and some of them internationally. And like, how how do you package chocolate chip cookies to be shipped internationally? Like what I thought was like, oh, well, I'll send like a batch or two. Turned out to be this just like ongoing thing of constantly baking cookies until, like that offer sort of expired when Apple came out with the next operating system. So I didn't make that offer again. But yeah, I'd totally forgotten about that. You're absolutely right. I did send a number of lucky randomly chosen winners box my cookies.
Yeah. So basically, all of these efficiencies that we came up with by using electronic stuff got eaten up, literally eaten up by cookies and shipping cookies. Joe would have made actual money that year, except that he had to send a dozen cookies to India. So sorry.
But the best internet cookies ever. So just saying.
Yeah.
Oh,
much better than those ones you find in your browser.
You're gonna go there. All right.
I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to have to head out. So please keep going. I have something I have to get to, but this has been fabulous, and we'll do it again someday. So
in 20
keep
years,
going, please.
In the next 20 years, yeah.
Always welcome, Adam. Thanks. And I know a couple other people said they have to leave, so I'll thank everybody for being here. And yeah, we'll continue as long as there's stories to tell, because I know there are a lot more stories.
Yeah, as soon as somebody leaves, we can tell stories about them.
I was saying, now that Adam is gone, oh no, I have to leave too. Crap. I need to keep this going while I'm driving so that nobody can tell stories about me. No, I'll just
Tonya, Adam, Chuck, everybody, it was so great to see you.
Thanks, Scott.
And I'll take off. Good, thank you.
Take care, Scott. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Tonya, about how books go out of date so quickly. And I checked on Amazon, and they're still selling my Mac OS 10 command line Unix Under the Hood from 2004. It's still available new, not used, but new.
Wow.
From 2004. To be fair, 90% of it is still valid because they haven't changed that much the Unix stuff, but they're still selling it from 2004.
Are people still buying it?
I don't know. It's listed. I can get a copy tomorrow, Prime. I wonder if it's print on demand, actually.
I mean, do you get a royalty statement?
I haven't seen. I never earned out on that. I don't think I've even gotten a royalty statement for any of my books in years. In fact, the company who was my agent when I was doing print books wrote me some years ago saying, "Well, we're not even going to bother to tell you anymore if you don't get more than a couple $100 a year in royalties."
Yeah, Peach Pit, by the way, sent me one of those because of the older Take Control books, and also Adam had a bunch of Peach Pits. And they're like, well, at some point in the future, you may possibly earn, I don't know what it was, $100 or $50, whatever it is. And at that point, we will send it to you. But in the meanwhile, feel free to log in at any time to see how much money you still don't have.
One thing I did some years ago is
I still get royalty statements from one of the editions of my book that didn't sell out its advance, and I keep thinking that it's like some sort of warning message that someday they're going to ask for the advance back or something. But every 3 months or something like that, I get a statement as to how it hasn't sold any copies since the last 3 months.
In 2004, I wrote the first book about the iPod in a garage series, iPod and iTunes Garage. And after a few years, I was actually able to get a reversion of the rights from the publisher because they weren't selling it anymore. And I think I rolled a couple of bits of that into my Take Control of iTunes book at some point. But other than that, I have no idea. I haven't heard from anyone. I must have worked with 6 or 8 publishers. Don't hear from them ever again.
My book's been out of print since 1997, my first book. But around 2018, on the Amazon page for where it only sells used copies, 2018, somebody posted a comment saying that they bought my book and it changed their life. And that, I still go back and reread that comment every once in a while when I need an ego boost, because it's just, it's so rare to hear that kind of feedback. But I have gotten that feedback more often from the Take Control book about, people reading it, saying they really liked it, asking me questions. I mean, there is, I think all of us publish an email address in their books, and hearing back from the readers that they really enjoyed it, that it was very helpful to them. Anybody who's watching this who's read my book and wants to get in touch with me, you're welcome to do so. I'd love to hear from you.
So that brings up a question I'd like to ask is to Joe and to Tonya. How did you decide when to decommission a book?
I mean, it sort of depends. Like when we're selling books about an operating system and it's been surpassed by a couple of later operating systems, I'm going to be like, I'm not going to sell my book on Catalina anymore. Like there are still people that are just now getting around to upgrading to Ventura or something. Okay, we'll leave that book on sale for a while. But like, why would we sell a book on iOS 13? Like, it's just like, so part of the answer is just like the software ages out. Part of the answer is if we've had books where like the sales just decreased over time, and now we're selling 1 or 2 copies a month, and it wouldn't be worth the author's time to revise it, because even if we came out with some like paid upgrade, some new edition, it couldn't support that. And if the material has gone out of date, then we say, even though like we like this book, it just doesn't make sense anymore. So every book is kind of different. Sometimes we've had books where like, not going to point any fingers and mention any names, but like the author goes and gets a job. Ugh. So then they're not available to update their book anymore. And then, time passes and it kind of languishes, and we think, well, for how long should we continue selling this book that we know is never going to be updated again? So stuff like that happens, but it's we don't have like a formula. We just kind of we play everything by ear. There are still some books on sale that I'm like, we probably could have discontinued that 10 years ago, but I don't know.
I'm poking around on the Take Control website right now, which I don't do very often, and I see you have an outdated titles tab.
Yeah, that's
there's
probably,
only 2
yeah,
titles there.
I actually went through that yesterday evening and deleted most of the things from there because what that category was mainly used for books that like we had actually discontinued. So
got it.
But now that you mention it, there are probably a few books that I should add to that because they're really showing their age. But
and part of it is on the one hand, if someone wants to buy an older title, like that's great, right? But I assume Joe would want them to be aware that we thought it was outdated, so that we wouldn't have them be disappointed if they thought it was an up-to-date title.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is that
listed as outdated. Oh no!
Well,
I know. I wrote it in 2014. No, I wrote it in 2014, and there were a couple of minor updates, but the software hasn't even been updated in a while. So, yeah.
It says that this particular one was published in 2014.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was
probably have more superpowers now. Remember?
Do you remember the comic? We had the 5 superpowers or something. And
yeah, maybe we added one for Launch Bar 6 or something.
Yeah, and what was it? The Joy of Tech people did a comic for it.
Yeah, you can get that right off. Well, maybe not. You still get it right off the website.
Yep.
Anyway.
But yeah, in some cases the software isn't updated, or there's just no point in. I mean, there's software that doesn't get updated regularly enough and becomes problematic, and authors don't want to be writing about that if the developers aren't serious.
I think back when I was in charge of royalties, if at some point, if a book, I forget what the rule was, but like if it didn't make more than $50 in the previous year, I'd be like, let's just clear this out. And I would discontinue the book because it just
I have
a trouble.
I have the spreadsheet. The rule is actually, this is per the contract. If a book has earned less than $50 in the last 18 months, then,
18 months.
Then we basically buy out the author for $25 and say, we're we're done with this. I have taken control of Mac Basics on that spreadsheet right now, and
sorry.
I mean,
that was my book, but it doesn't really look like I'm going to update it. So yeah, that should probably occur. Just send me the paperwork or whatever, and we'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Which of us is going to write the Take Control of VR Pro?
Heaven forbid.
So are you guys doing like take control of ChatGPT or take control of
okay.
artificial?
That's a reasonable question. A reader wrote in and said, "Oh, you should do a book about AI, like how to use the tools that are out there and what cool things, and how to figure out what's good and what's not." And I like, I don't know. Let me run that idea by a couple of authors, and both of the authors that I ran it by were like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
Did you ask ChatGPT to write it?
I will
offer to write it. Of Joe Kissell about.
Let me jump in here.
But I mean,
I will volunteer to write it, but only if I can use ChatGPT to write it.
Yeah, Amazon now asks you have to tell it when you're submitting a book to them whether any portion of it, even including like the cover art, was generated by AI. You have to report that.
I just want to jump in with a story here. Most of my stuff was written about troubleshooting, and I watched as the audience for print book troubleshooting disappear because Google searches pretty much took it over, which I use myself. But more recently, I help a lot of people who are less technically inclined than I am with their troubleshooting. And sometimes they'll say something, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure what the answer is. Let me Google it and get the answer. And I'm saying, why can't they do that? Why it would be just as simple for them to do as for me. And it became one of the answers that became clear was that when you do a Google search, you get a lot of crap as well as good stuff. And I spend a good deal of time trying to figure out what is the good answer as opposed to the bad answer, which they don't want to take the time to do. So then I said, ChatGPT. And so I took a couple of questions that my friends had been asking me and asked ChatGPT, and I was floored by the answer. It was a great answer. I mean, it was like a take control book on the subject. And so it's like I've seen the future, and that's where troubleshooting is going next.
Well, I can jump in. Go ahead, Jeff. Joe, go ahead.
The one time the first time I said, "Oh, ChatGPT, let me just try this out. I'm just going to ask it a random tech question that I know the answer to, which is how do you enter recovery mode on a Mac with Apple Silicon?" And it gave me an answer. I said, "No, that's actually not right. That's the answer for an Intel Mac. How do you do it for an Apple Silicon Mac?" And it again gave me a different version of the same answer. And I again said, "No, actually, step 3 is totally wrong. You have to do it like this." And then it's like, "Yeah, follow these steps." I'm like, "No, once again, you have completely given the wrong." And I'm telling you, ChatGPT, here is the correct procedure to go through. And on like its 4th try, it finally admitted that I was right. And so like that one experience sort of soured me on the whole thing.
Well, I mean, give an example. One of the ones that I remember that I asked, I had a friend who was having trouble with a whole bunch of import mailboxes in their Apple Mail thing, which they didn't know how they had like 24 of them, and I wasn't sure where they came from. And so I said, I asked ChatGPT what to do about it, and it didn't know the answer. I mean, to be fair, it's not like it said, "Oh, here's the source of the problem," but it was sort of like I would write about it. It was a series of steps to try to figure out what's going on. And it was exactly almost what I would have said to do. And so I was impressed.
I asked ChatGPT to write my bio, and it gave me credit for some books that Jeff Carlson wrote for Take Control. So I'm less impressed with ChatGPT because it's one thing to be wrong factually. It's another thing to give me credit for things that I didn't do. So
when I asked ChatGPT for my bio, it said I was dead. So
even better.
I'm very sorry to hear that, Ted.
And I was in a band, so that was nice.
I write blog articles for the Scrivener developers once a week, and I wrote one recently about daydreaming, how daydreaming can make a writer more creative. So I use ChatGPT regularly to say, "Give me bullet points for this topic," because it comes up with a few bullet points I might not think of. And I said, have any famous authors written about daydreaming? And it says, well, J.K. Rowling said this and Stephen King said that. And I said, oh, wait a second. I have Stephen King's On Writing in Kindle, so I can look and confirm if this is it. And it wasn't in the book. And I went back and said, well, Stephen King didn't say that. Oh, I'm sorry. I was mistaken. Stephen King didn't say that, but he alluded to. And the J.K. Rowling I couldn't find. I'm sorry. I was mistaken about that. J.K. Rowling didn't actually say that. But it's all this kind of smarmy, I'm sorry I made a mistake stuff that really gets me. I mean, Joe's thing, like, at least it's owning up to what it's saying and defending it. But everything I get is, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. If you're really curious, there was a New Yorker article a couple of weeks ago about someone asking something about Proust and asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT first couldn't reply because it wasn't in the public domain, but it was the public. And a very interesting New Yorker article showing ChatGPT saying, I'm sorry, as it goes along.
My general reaction to that is that we're still on the ground floor. You know, it's like you were talking about earlier about how Word could barely handle text versioning, and look where we are now. You know, 10 years from now, we'll be laughing at this discussion because ChatGPT.
20 years ago, we couldn't do this.
Right.
We're doing it now.
So we're this. It's less than what? I think less than a year since ChatGPT became well known to the world. So we got a long way to go before we can say this isn't going to get any better.
I know Joe said that we were going to wrap it up at 3/4 past the hour, but Joe, I want to make sure that we get in a mention of the sale that you're doing to celebrate the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, moments before we started recording this, I launched the sale, and then customers started ringing by and saying, this thing isn't working. Like, I'm on a call right now. I will fix that when I'm done. But the sale, which I'm sure will be totally running smoothly by the time you read this, is we're rolling back our prices to 2003. So yeah, the 64-page book's $5, but also the 377-page book, $5, upgrades, $5, cross grades, $5, things that are normally $4.50, also $5. Everything's $5. So that's going on through the end of October 26th, Thursday, October 26th, my time, Central Time. So if you are able to, if you see this before then, please come buy a lot of books. Also, from now through November 23rd, which is Thanksgiving in the United States, take control of Thanksgiving dinner, free for everybody. So pick up a copy of that too.
All right. I just want to thank Chuck and Joe and Tonya and everybody else who was involved in doing this. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for doing it.
And it's a great community that I'm proud to be a part of. I mean, the work that Adam, Tonya, and Joe have put into fostering a community of creators, and Chuck, your work here has been fantastic as well. I mean, this is something that I consider to be a feather in my cap that I get to call myself a take control author, and that's because the quality of the books, but also the quality of the people involved is it's a wonderful community.
Well, I said thanks go to Joe because that's why we're here today. Is him taking on the baton of Take Control and deciding to have the anniversary celebration involve all of us. So cheers to Joe.
Thank you.
So long, everybody.
And I said it when we started this. I feel like I got a seat on Mount Olympus with you all. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being part of my journey on MacVoices, and thank you for everything you've all done for this community. You are the rock stars, no question.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks, everybody.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. I don't know. Joe says we won't be doing this on the 40th anniversary. I'm still not sure. Until the next time. And as always, thanks for watching.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.